Good evening and welcome. It is my pleasure on behalf of Monsignor Walter Rossi, the rector of this National Shrine, to welcome each of you this evening to this beautiful crypt church for our annual Lenten reflection series. I welcome in a particular way Mrs. Sara Blauvelt as our presenter this evening. Sara is the Director of Catechesis for the Archdiocese of Washington. She holds a master's degree in catechesis and religious education from the Catholic University of America. Sara is known for her passion in helping children and adults to grow in their faith and in their relationship with Christ and His Church. Sara has been serving as a catechist for over 20 years. The theme of this year's reflection series is the 7 last words of Christ. Sara's presentation this evening is entitled, The Third Word, Woman, Behold Your Son, Behold Your Mother. Please join me in welcoming Sara, and thank you for being with us this evening.
In the final hours of his life, even as he is enduring the agony of the crucifixion, Jesus speaks to us from the cross, offering a final, perfect lesson on forgiveness, mercy, love, and redemption. In this third reflection, we are called to turn our gaze from the drama on the cross to those standing at the foot of the cross. From the Gospel of John, we hear the words, "Standing by the cross of Jesus were his mother and his mother's sister, Mary of Clophas, and Mary of Magdala. When Jesus saw his mother and the disciple there whom he loved, he said to his mother, 'Woman, behold your son.' Then he said to the disciple, 'Behold your mother.' And from that hour, the disciple took her into his home." There is something far greater here than a loving gesture of a son seeking to take care of his mother. This relationship is not limited to an ordinary human relationship, though it is that as well. The mystery unfolding of the cross shows the love of the Father for us. Jesus knows that we need maternal care as well. Jesus, therefore, in the last moments of his life, gives to us his mother. In this gift from the cross, Jesus makes real the reciprocal nature of this transcendent mother and son relationship by invoking both John as son and Mary as mother. Because of this, the children of God will never be left alone as we travel through life. Mary, our ever-present mother, will be standing ready to console, accompany, and lead her children to her son. Yet how can what appears to be a contract of sorts between the beloved disciple and Mary transcend time and space? Here the scope of the relationship is best understood as a sacrament. As is true of a sacrament, the words spoken by Jesus are efficacious. That is, they make real and visible a new spiritual relationship of mother and son. The beloved disciple enters into a unique relationship with the mother of Christ, but at the same time, he stands for all beloved disciples. From the cross, we come to understand a new relationship for the members of Christ, a relationship born in faith, a new motherhood made real as Mary and the beloved disciple stand together at the foot of the cross. Though Mary remained in relative anonymity throughout her life, she shines in her supportive role with words and actions that reflect unflinching trust in God's plan. As at the Annunciation, Mary is invited at the foot of the cross to once again give birth to our salvation by her cooperation with God's grace. To more fully understand the divine motherhood of Mary, it is helpful to consider the incarnation in which Jesus became human to reconcile us with God and so that we could partake in his divine nature. Speaking of this remarkable reality, St. Thomas Aquinas says, "The only begotten Son of God, wanting to make us sharers in his divinity, assumed our nature so that he, made man, might make men gods. As with a sacrament, in this exchange, God freely offers his grace to us, this time through his mother, that we may share in his life. Who could be better, then, than Mary, the mother of Christ, the woman who taught Jesus to be human, to teach us to be divine? By entrusting Mary to John as a unique individual and beloved disciple, Jesus continues the work of our salvation through the mother-son relationship, forged in the Paschal mystery at the foot of the cross for all beloved disciples. Borrowing a word so often applied to Mary, I invite you now to ponder with me two additional themes. First, the nature of Mary's motherhood, and then her role as our mother teacher who models for us the life of virtue to which all disciples are called. Mary's motherhood. Motherhood is relational. That is, a relationship is forged that bonds individuals together. Some of us may be mothers or fathers by virtue of having children. Each of us is a daughter or son of our parents. From our parents, we learn how to live and love in relationship with one another. I recall times when one of my 3 children would pose the question, "Mom, who do you love most?" Or perhaps more frequently, it came as an insult to their siblings, "Mom loves me most." In both instances, I heard reflected in these words a need in my children. They wanted to be assured that they were loved as much as the others, but also loved for who they were as unique persons. Our God, who loved us into being, and who, as St. Augustine remarks, loves each of us as though there were only one of us, responds to our very human need for love. Each of us dwells in this parent-child relationship as beloved children of God. In the third word from the cross, this relationship of loving presence is given new life through Mary. It's hard to see those we love suffer, whether it's a child, a parent, or a friend. A small hurt or a life-altering crisis, it hurts us to see them hurt. In our humanity, we cannot take away their suffering. The best we may be able to offer is simply to be with them and to assure them of our love. Standing at the foot of the cross, can we even begin to imagine the magnitude of pain and loss that Mary felt at that moment? She, who was both mother and disciple, helpless to save her son from the unspeakable agony he endured. Yet here she stands, dignified and silent, radiating courage and steadfast love. At the foot of the cross, Mary shines full of grace. As St. Ambrose writes, I read of her standing, but not of her weeping. He goes on to say, the pain which the Holy Virgin endured at the Passion of her Son exceeded all the pains which a human heart can endure. But the grief of Mary was not a barren grief like that of other mothers who behold the sufferings of their children. It was a fruitful grief, since through the merits of her so great grief and through her love, she became the spiritual mother of us who are faithful members, in cooperating with him by her love in causing us to be born and to be the children of the Church. Mary as our mother teacher. The lessons we learn from our earthly parents are endless. As we mature, our wisdom and understanding deepen as we apply what we have learned from our parents to our lives. And so it is with Mary. Through the unspoken agreement at the foot of the cross, Mary gives her consent to be our mother teacher. Mary, who taught Jesus his humanity, will teach John and all other beloved disciples by extension how to be divine. Paul, in his first letter to the Corinthians, chapter 13, verses 12 and 13, outlines the lessons that Mary profoundly teaches us at the foot of the cross. At present, we see indistinctly as in a mirror, but then face to face. At present, I know partially, then I shall know fully as I am fully known. So faith, hope, love remain, these three, but the greatest of these is love. By living the virtues of faith, hope, and love, we come to know who we are called to be as children of God. In the desolation of the crucifixion scene, where all seems lost, faith, hope, and love remain in Mary and the beloved disciple. In his reflection last week, Father McBrady spoke of the humble availability of the good thief to surrender to the love and mercy of God. Whereas the good thief came to learn this lesson on the cross, professing his faith and hope in Jesus in the last moments of his life, Mary, from the moment of her fiat at the Annunciation, has lived a life of humble availability, open to the will of God in all things. A life of faithful commitment to God built up in Mary the freedom to surrender her will to God in the critical moments of her life. In the face of unspeakable pain and suffering, when the world doesn't make sense, Mary stands at the foot of the cross, modeling the theological virtues of faith, hope, and love. As a person whose passion is catechesis, I must include at least one reference to the Catechism of the Catholic Church, which points out that these virtues have the one and triune God for their origin, their motive, and their object. These virtues, infused by God in our souls and lived through his grace. In applying these virtues to our lives, we are conformed to him who gives meaning to life. So we turn to look once again at Mary at the foot of the cross as model. Faith. Faith is first and foremost a relationship. It is a relationship of gift and assent. It is an exchange from the cross. Jesus is the only one who speaks. Mary's radical affirmation needs no spoken word. Her assent in faith resounds from the moment of her initial fiat at the Annunciation. Truly, her life has been a continuous series of yeses to magnify the Lord. Likewise, the beloved disciple speaks no word, but from that moment reflects decisive action by taking Mary into his home. In faith, we believe all that God proposes for our salvation, even when doubt obscures the heart. In faith, we are called to commit ourselves entirely to God. Living the virtue of faith calls us to assent to all that God has revealed to us and to bear witness to this faith, though we cannot fully understand. However, faith is far more than an intellectual assent to the truth that Jesus teaches. Living faith must stir up the soul to acts of charity. St. John Paul II speaks of Mary's heroic witness to faith when he says, "How completely she abandons herself to God without reserve, offering the full assent of the intellect and will to him whose ways are inscrutable." Finding Mary at the foot of the cross, we are reminded that in faith we must follow Jesus along the way of the cross through the Paschal mystery. At Cana, Mary first taught his followers to trust Christ implicitly. Do whatever he tells you. When the challenge of faith is a heavy load to carry, Mary, our mother, speaks in faith to our hearts. Do whatever he tells you. We are secure in knowing that Mary is not asking us to do anything she has not already done herself. Hope. Hope is faith that looks to the future in confidence, trusting in all that God has promised. Throughout her life, Mary gives birth to hope in truly remarkable situations. Certainly, the foot of the cross is not the first time Mary teaches us the virtue of hope. She shines as a beacon of hope when she leaves behind the obscurity of a young girl in Nazareth at the Annunciation. She shows persevering hope as she travels from Nazareth to Bethlehem, giving birth in conditions we cannot begin to imagine. She reflects abiding hope as she watches from the sidelines as her son becomes the teacher and master, leading the apostles throughout the countryside amid growing hostility to his message. Finally, she gives rebirth to hope in a new mother-son relationship while standing at the foot of the cross. Standing may not evoke decisive action in our minds, but we must think about where Mary and the beloved disciple are standing. They stand together at the foot of the cross, a place of cruel humiliation and torture, where their son and friend endures suffocation and death. They have passed by the guards to get this close, to stand together in compassion and love for Jesus. Together they reflect compassion rooted in hope. The virtue of hope sustains a steadfast spirit of trust that awaits the promises revealed by God. In hindsight, we know that their hope will be fulfilled in the resurrection, but Mary and John cannot know this as they stand at the foot of the cross. They have simply and profoundly placed their trust in the hope of the kingdom of heaven that Jesus preached throughout his earthly ministry. In a profound reflection, St. Teresa of Avila describes Christian hope. In her words, I see evidence of Mary's courageous hope. Watch carefully. Everything passes quickly. Even though your impatience makes you doubtful what is certain and turns a very short time into a long one, dream that the more you struggle, the more you will rejoice one day with your beloved in a happiness and rapture that can never end. Love. And the greatest of these is love. Our world sometimes confuses love with passion and charity with social service. Therefore, it is helpful for us to understand the charity love that Jesus speaks of when he says, "As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Abide in my love." Still, we must dig deeper to consider what marks such self-sacrificing love. Here I summarize St. Paul's beautiful depiction of love. It is patient and kind, not jealous, doesn't insist on its own way, is not resentful, it bears all things, hopes all things, and endures all things. Standing at the foot of the cross, Mary is a perfect mirror of Jesus' model of self-sacrificing love. The Catechism tells us that the gift of charity, infused in our hearts by God, upholds and purifies the human ability to love and raises it to the supernatural perfection of divine love. Mary is our model. As we continue on our Lenten journey, let us not forget the beloved disciple and his sonship. John, too, answered a resounding yes at the foot of the cross, though he spoke no word. From the hour that Mary was entrusted to his care, he took her into his heart as he welcomed her into his home. In this, he created a model for us to follow in our relationship with Mary, our mother. Simply stated, gratefully entrust your heart and your home to her maternal care. St. John Paul II emphasized this relationship when he says, "On the cross, Jesus did not proclaim Mary's universal motherhood formally, but established a concrete maternal relationship between her and the beloved disciple. In the Lord's choice, we can see his concern that this motherhood should not be interpreted in some vague way, but should point to Mary's intense personal relationship with individual Christians. We accept this gracious gift of Mary's motherhood when we welcome her into our lives, entrusting our hopes and fears to her ever-present maternal care." Mary's maternal love and cooperation with God's grace was given new life at the foot of the cross. Mary is uniquely suited to the task of universal motherhood. As Fulton Sheen highlights, just as Christ was formed in her, so must we be formed in her. Only she who raised Christ can raise a Christian. This relationship endures today in the heart of everyone who welcomes Mary as their mother. Mother of multitudes, she, like her son, is able to love each of us as if there were only one of us. Speaking of the unceasing work of Mary as mother, St. John Vianney remarks, Only after the Last Judgment will Mary get any rest. From now until then, she is much too busy with her children. Behold your mother. The offer of a new and eternal relationship is given, and Mary in her maternal love cooperates with God's grace to raise up generation after generation of children of God. Join Mary at the foot of the cross. Take her into your home. Learn from her. Keep her in your heart. Mary, Mother of God and our Mother, pray for us.